G'day trainers and welcome back to another Pokemon Horizons episode review. It is episode 4 now. This one is called A Washed Ashore Treasure. And now thinking about it, hold on. I was going to say that's clearly just talking about the Brave Asagi's flag that washed up on shore at the end of episode 3, the one that Roy found. But maybe not. Maybe the washed ashore treasure is Liko. And I'll get into why. They don't want to, I'm not going to say crash landing, but they had to make an emergency stop. So the kind of, no, that doesn't make sense because they didn't wash ashore. It's just about the flag. That's all. I'm thinking too much into this. It's Liko's great, but she's not the washed ashore treasure. So look, we start this episode off very quickly. We just see a bunch of the little Pokemon playing together. We see the Pawmi playing with the Snorunt. We do see... No, that might be it. We might... I literally just watched this like 30 minutes ago. I think it might have just been those two. So we see them playing. Unfortunately, they're a bit loud. They go and wake up Liko and Sprigatitto. And it's kind of good that they do, because that leads on to one of the absolute best parts of this episode, and it's going to be one of the best parts of every single episode going forward, and that is the intro song. The intro to Pokemon Horizons is incredible. It is so good. The intro is amazing. The outro is great. I know I wanted to make a video, I'm really scared about copyright. I wanted to have a video where I sort of maybe break it down into a reaction to it, but Pokemon and Nintendo and whoever do the licensing for Pokemon, the anime, I'm scared of. They're, especially if it's Nintendo, man, those dudes are notorious with their copyrights. And just Japan, man, Japan loves a good copyright. So I've been a little nervous doing it. Look, maybe we'll do it in a stream, we'll see. But yeah, we kick it off. The intro is incredible. It's great. Like I said, it feels like an anime intro. Don't get me wrong. I love the old ones. I love Gotta Catch 'Em All. It's just great. But this one is good. It's so good. If you haven't heard it, even if you're waiting for the dub before you go and watch Pokemon Horizons, just go watch the intro. It's so good. You'll get minor spoilers. You'll see some characters. You'll see some of their Pokemon, but that's really about it. That's really it. Now, it seems like we have had a little bit of a time skip since episode 3. So from 3 to 4, there's been a small time skip. And the reason I think or the reason why that's happened is at the end of episode 3, we see Liko on her phone to Anne. That's the really messy, crazy housemate she has over at the Indigo Academy. And she's like, hey, I'm probably not going to come back. Well, sort of. I'll attend my classes via distance, but remote learning, or I'm going to try to anyway. And this episode kicks off with her just talking to herself, stating, look, I've already signed up for it. I am doing this. And the school break's about to finish. So again, we could either I don't know what it's like in Japan. I don't know what school break's like in Japan again. I know in America you get just like your big 3-month break at the end of the year or whenever it is. Because that's spring break, yeah? That's spring break? I don't know. We don't have anything like that here in Australia. But in Australia, we get we get 3 2-week breaks and then 1 6-week break over Christmas. So I'm assuming this is closer to a 2-week break. So maybe she's been on the timings don't make sense. Unless the Brave Asagi is the slowest airship on the planet, like unless it's a blimp, which kind of, maybe? I'm not 100% sure. No, it's not a blimp. Those timelines don't make sense to me. Unless it was the weekend and the kids were going home for the weekend, that could make sense. But look, I don't know. If there's anything out there, I checked the wiki, I checked Bulbapedia, it doesn't state anything. I should have just seen how long breaks are in Japan, and I'll do that right after this video. So yeah, we do this, and we see one more thing. Our little buddy, Fuecoco, is a world-class singer. Yeah, he would give Uta from One Piece, Shanks' daughter, spoiler alert, maybe, about the, maybe, but Uta, great singer, gives Uta a run for her money because we see our little boy Fuecoco loves to just sing into the night. He's a bit shy. The second he is seen singing, he bails. He does not like it. And Liko and Sprigatitto, or Nyauha, love its Japanese name, come across him, and yeah, he's out of there. He is not sticking around. He's embarrassed. Maybe embarrassed? I'd say embarrassed, yeah, but he bails. And it seems, though, Liko is now a member, or an official member. Maybe not an official member, but she's kind of a member of the Rising Vault Tacklers now, because Freed gives her a job. She is now on guard duty. She is the lookout of the Brave Asagi, and I like it. It's something really, really small. Like, it's nothing that's going to impact the story that I can see. Maybe she'll be in the lookout one day and she'll see the explorers coming. Doesn't happen in this episode, but maybe that's what'll happen, and she'll have a little arc. I don't know, but it's nothing huge. But I don't know how to explain it. I like it. It's just a little piece of, do I want to say world building? I don't think it's world building, but it's a little piece of just expanding the universe and the characters. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. There is something wrong with the Brave Asagi, which is what I was getting at, saying maybe Liko's the washed ashore treasure. But they're losing altitude. There's nothing wrong with the engines. Ola checks the engines, because she's just the world's greatest mechanic. She'd give Winry a run for her money. Nah, she wouldn't. I like Ola or Aurea, but I still think Winry is probably a better mechanic. Until I see Ola build a mechanical arm for Freed, yeah, I think Winry still wins. They land. They see an island up ahead, and Freed's like, hey, I know this island. There's an old man here that helped me out once, and he's going to help us again, because we're going to need to go and find materials to try to repair the ship. What's happened is it was either in the battle or it was in the thunderstorm that they were in. There are rips. There are tears in, and this is why I got a little confused about the word blimp before, in sort of the air sacs. the material that the gas and the helium are in to keep the Brave Asagi flying. There's 3 large tears in that one. And unfortunately, Ola is not skilled enough with a thread and needle to fix them herself. So they need to stop. They need to stop and pick up repair parts on this island. We see something kind of cute. We see Charizard playing jump rope with Fuecoco. I liked it. It was either Charizard just having a good old time, or it was him training Fuecoco, like jump, 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 just getting all of his jumps in. Kind of doing like half burpees, half rep burpees. But it was cute until Freed's like, Lizardon, we gotta go. Jumps on the back of Lizardon, and the captain, and Charizard are off. Fuecoco doesn't want to be left behind. We find out why later, but Fuecoco doesn't want to be left behind, and he runs after them until he trips. He trips, and he slides right off the side of the Brave Asagi. He's trying to hold on, but he can't. He falls into the ocean, and you know, man, fire-type Pokemon, they're not a big fan of the ocean. So yeah, that happened. We then immediately cut to Roy. Our boy's on the beach. He's just skipping some rocks. We find out he knows how to throw rocks. He's got some, honestly, kind of gave me some Naruto feels. Boy can like skip rocks off trees. We see him use it as a diversion later. We see him use it to cut down berries to get himself a little snack. It's really cool. But yeah, we cut back to Roy, like I mentioned. And he's just there having fun, having a good time on the beach. And we do a very quick skip back to Liko. She's searching at the Brave Asagi. She's reaching out to Murdoch. She's like, yo, she's not saying yo, but yo, have you seen Fuecoco? Where is he at? Murdoch's like, yo, I don't know. Ola? Yeah, this is where we see Ola's terrible with needle and thread. She's trying to thread up the balloons. Yeah, we're going to call them balloons. She's trying to thread up the balloons for the Brave Asagi, and it's not going well. We get confirmation that Molly is actually the doctor or the nurse or the first aid officer of the Rising Vault Tacklers, because we see her with her stethoscope in, we see her with her Chansey jacket, and she actually has a Chansey herself. And I think she was checking out Sprigatitto. She was just making sure it was okay. Obviously, Sprig just went through this big old ordeal. Obviously being captured by the explorers and being pampered and then turned on by Konia, the real evil looking lady from the explorers. And it was just a little checkup. We then see Ludlow, the old man, the one I called Ludwig last episode. Yeah, it's Ludlow, the old fisherman. He tells everyone, or tells Liko, that Fuecoco is a bit of a singer. Yep, he loves to sing, but he is incredibly shy, and he just doesn't. Yeah, he just cannot handle anybody, anybody witnessing him singing. It's really sad. We go back up. They're still searching. Liko, Sprigatitto, they are searching the Brave Asagi everywhere. And they get to what's it called? The wing deck. The wing deck, it's down. It's as a deck right now because obviously they've landed. And or Sprigatitto rather, notices a bunch of scratches on the deck. So Sprigatitto's like, meow, meow. That was good. That was good. That was a good Sprigatitto impression. And they're like, oh no, he's fallen, hasn't he? Because he has. He's goofy, but the anime is making me love him. Honestly, I was Sprigatitto, Quaxly, Fuecoco. It's now Sprigatitto, Fuecoco, Quaxly. I don't really care about Quaxly anymore, especially Quackleval. I know he was one of my Pokemon in the SGL Streamer Gym Leader Challenge, but I don't know. Fuecoco's got more personality right now, and I'm absolutely loving it. So from there, we jump down onto the island. Sprigatitto and Liko, they are down, they are searching, they see his footprints leading off into the forest. What they don't know though, Fuecoco's fine. He's gone and he has found a nice little stash of berries. Well, we won't see it yet, but those berries belong to not just someone, but a lot of someones, and they are not going to be happy when they come back and see that all of their hard work, all of their foraging was for nothing. Because a little fire croc from the other side of the planet came in and ate it all. Yeah. We cut back to Roy. He's walking through the forest and he pulls out his Rotom tablet and he's chatting with 3 of his friends. And they're all like, hey, Roy, we just got our first Pokemon. The first kid shows they got a Tailo. The second one shows they've got a Stuffle. And the third one shows, I think it was a Glameow. But that was kind of cool. He's jealous. Roy was really jealous. He even says it. He goes, look, I'm really jealous you guys have got your own Pokemon. However, he looks genuinely happy for his friends. And that made me happy. I'm good to know he's an alright dude. He's there. He is just happy for his friends. And that's great. That's good. He looks like a good dude. We do find out, though, we are still in the Kanto region because their friends, the 3 people on the Rotom tablet, are all like, Roy, why don't you go catch a Pikachu if you're in Kanto? And of course they said Pikachu. Honestly, the next closest thing they would have said would have been Charmander. But they get too much love. I love Pikachu. I love Captain Pikachu. I love Roy's Charizard. I loved Ash's Charizard. But come on. Let's just cut the Charizards and Pikachus down a little bit. Please, just a little bit. Let's show some spotlight on some other Pokemon. Now, we may be, again, being in Kanto still, this is definitely a place we've never been before. So maybe we're down in the Sevi Islands, because we are on an island, or probably more likely, we're just in a place that we haven't seen before. It's going to be anime only. It won't have been a part of the games or the manga. And that's cool. It just adds new places. We don't get a name for the island, unfortunately. That could come later, but we just don't have one yet. Now, Roy asks his friends, like, hey guys, what's your goal? What do you want to do as Pokemon trainers? And the first one, of course, is like, I'm taking on the gym challenge. I'm going to conquer the gym leaders. And he's going to reign supreme. He's coming after Ash at the next Masters 8. Second person seems the girl. She's either from Alola or she just loves Alola because she's like, I want to take on the totem Pokemon. And then we get the most suspicious character, more suspicious than Amethio, Zir, and Konia. Sorry, I was trying to remember their names. I didn't want to have to do that in more than one take. I want to remember. And he's the most suspicious character because he doesn't answer. He deflects the answer and goes, Roy, what about you? What do you want to do? And that seems weird to me. Why? Why not just answer your question? I'm pretty sure he was the kid with the Glameow. And you want to know why? Do you want to know what really is going on? That little heathen, yeah, I called him a heathen. His goal is to be the next criminal mastermind of whatever region he's in. Maybe the whole world. Maybe he is just the big bad guy. Proof? You want proof? How about let's look at Giovanni. He was a criminal mastermind, and remind me, who was his most seen Pokemon? Was it Mewtwo? No, that was his most powerful Pokemon, but definitely not his most seen Pokemon. Was it Rhydon? No. Again, Rhydon was a powerhouse, but it wasn't Rhydon. It was Persian, the cat Pokemon. Is that just a coincidence? He has a cat. This unnamed young trainer has it. I don't think so, man. I think to qualify as a crime lord in the Pokemon world, you need a cat Pokemon. So if you're running around with a Litten, if you're running around with, I can't remember any cat Pokemon right now. Liko is the ultimate villain of this series. Yep. Sprigatitto, little weed cat. I'm calling it. Liko is going to just be this double herring. She's the bad one. She is actually after her own pendant. That's how that's going to play down. Obviously not. Obviously, he's just a kid. He didn't answer. However, maybe. How do you know? You don't know what's going to happen. He could turn to the dark side. Yeah, he might. He might. Now, look. Roy says he knows one thing he wants to do with his Pokemon. He wants to go and catch all of these. He wants to catch and encounter all these different types of Pokemon. But he pulls out something. And I'm pretty sure we saw it in the last episode. A really old looking Pokeball. Now I'm talking even older than Hisui Pokeballs. Like, this thing looks ancient. Like, this doesn't look like it's a crafted, like handcrafted Pokeball. This thing looks like it, like wood, like, you know, in Hisui they were kind of wooden, and they were yeah. This thing, I don't know. This thing looks like it had to have been forged. This thing is like the One Ring. That's it. It's the one Pokeball. Yeah. We don't know what it is yet. We don't get to know anything else about it just yet. We then see Liko and Sprigatitto. They find the berry stash that Fuecoco has eaten. And remember how I said that there were many someones who owned that stash? Well, there were many someones. There were a bunch of Bellsprout. There were a bunch of... No, I think there was one Diglett. There were a couple of Oddish. There was a Caterpie and a Weedle. And they were furious. Their stash was gone. These are low-level first generation. You could almost even call them baby Pokemon. And all of their hard work has been for nothing because of a little fire croc that decided to eat everything in the world that they had. Yeah. They start throwing string shots everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. It is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. As that's happening, though, we cut to Roy, and it wasn't just a video call. When his friends, no, it wasn't just a happy-go-lucky video call. My boy was getting ready for some remote education because his professor pops up on the screen and they start a lesson. We're picking up right from yesterday, is what the professor said. And they start learning. Now, I am wanting to know, I just stuttered a bunch. I'm interested to know if that still would, like remote learning, if that still would have been a thing, or did they incorporate that because that became the norm probably while Horizons was in production, right? Like there were a lot of people due to COVID-19 that were doing classes from home. They were working from home. So I'm interested to see maybe that had some impact on what happened, or maybe they're just super progressive. Like, no, man, no, fam, you don't need to sit in a classroom to learn. Go sit in nature. I like it. The Pokemon world's very progressive. As that happens, though, our favorite Pokemon content creator pops up on the screen, and it's Pokeboy. I mean, it's Nidothing. It's Nidothing. Look. Out of me, Nidothing, and Iono, there's one thing that's going to hold true. Iono comes last. She's the what? You know, I hate her. I wanted to love her, and I rant about this all the time, but she is terrible. I hate her. She's the worst gym leader ever, and no matter who comes first, whether it's me or Nidothing, either way, Iono comes last. That's all that matters. And Nidothing is given a very basic class. She just goes live, and she's teaching everyone about the basics of catching Pokemon. You got to throw The subtitles call it a monster ball because that's just what it is. Pocket monsters in Japan, so it's a monster ball. Um, Teaching the basics about having to catch them, having to damage them, lower their HP. It's not always a sure thing, and it's just very basic energy. A basic learning about how to catch Pokemon, and it was kind of cool. I liked it. I really, really liked it. Because as we find out, there is not a single Pokemon trainer on Roy's Island. Not a single one. There are none. That's crazy, right? They live with Pokemon. They live like side by side with Pokemon all day, but there's no trainers on that island. That fascinates me. Like, I can't imagine living in the Pokemon world and not being a Pokemon trainer, or at the very least, having Pokemon, like actual Pokemon in your Pokemon. After that lesson, though, we see that Fuecoco absolutely destroys a secret base. It found a little wooden cabin out in the woods, and he trashes it. And there's trash everywhere. The door was left wide open for anything to get in, and we find out that that was Roy's secret base. And he sees some footprints leading up the window, which means, look, the window was relatively high, and Fuecoco is pretty small. I would like to see that animated. I think we need to, because it shouldn't have worked at all. So he's hunting him down, and all of a sudden, you're just hearing the la la la. I promise, Fuecoco is a better singer than that. But he starts to hear some singing. We then see in this giant tree, it's like that big tree in Avatar, Blue Avatar, not Last Airbender Avatar. Sort of the big tree in the middle of the forest. Fuecoco's up there, man, singing his life. He's having a good time. He's having a great time until Roy makes himself known, and then he just bails. He starts running. He jumps, and he actually tries to jump over a cliff. And remember, really small legs. He doesn't make it. He gets halfway over that cliff, and he's about to drop. My boy Roy, my boy Roy jumps in and saves him. He grabs him, and they land safely. And Fuecoco's smitten. He loves him now. They are just boys forever. And it turns out they've landed right near the Brave Asagi. Yeah. So, look, he got spooked, but they're best friends now. Like, I'm pretty sure they're going to be best friends. We see Freed has met up with his not new friend. We see Freed's met up with the old man, an old friend. And the old man says a couple of things. At first, the old man says that I thought you would come here to investigate. That has no light shed on it, but I'm very curious. Investigate what? What is there on this island that requires investigation? A type of Pokemon phenomenon? I don't know, because one of the other things he does is he calls him Professor Freed, and Freed does not like that. Freed's like, no, don't call me Professor. But the more I'm thinking about it, my assumption's going to be Freed is a dropout professor. Maybe he was studying to be one. He was training up maybe under a different professor. And he's decided that while he was good, because he's good with Pokemon, we see him do something really great later in this episode. But we see him, we just see him want to chase adventure, chase treasure. So maybe that's what it was. That's where I'm putting my money. Freed was a professor, or he was an aspiring professor, and he, decided to become an air pirate instead. I really, really hope that's what happens. That's for sure. Now, Freed is interrupted. So Freed's interrupted by an NPC. That was a bit rude, wasn't it? Freed's interrupted by a background character who's like, hey, old man, or I don't think he even uses the name. I just think he says, hey, or maybe he just starts talking and yelling, saying that the forest Pokemon are rampaging. And boy, are they rampaging. They are chasing down Liko and Sprigatitto, and they are running for their lives until they run into two Scyther. Scyther! They run into two of them. And they decide they want to jump in on it too. So whether these Scyther were originally a part of the group, I'm going to assume that they were. As in like the group that was foraging for these berries. They were maybe like the guardians of the group, because Scyther, they're big boys. They're scary. They could decapitate you easily. Yeah, so they're now getting chased by the Oddish, the Diglett, the Gloom, the Bellsprout. Not the Gloom. Not the Gloom. There was no Gloom. The Bellsprout, the Weedle, the Caterpie, and the Scyther. And that just sounds really... That sounds terrible. That sounds really, really bad. We do cut back, though. We cut back to Roy and Fuecoco, and they're just hanging out together, having a great time. And Roy actually convinces Sprigatitto to sing with him. He's like, hey, man, I like your singing. It calms me. It makes me feel good. And Fuecoco's like, yo, thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. And then they start singing together. And you know what? We know from promotional materials that Fuecoco is, or at the very least, Roy has a Fuecoco as a partner. And it's probably this one. They built up too much of a bond, so I'd be very, very surprised if it's not. However, while they're singing though, Roy hears a scream, like a guttural scream, a cry for help. And he's like, yo, we need to go help out. So he and Hogatar, which is just the Japanese name for Fuecoco, and I love it, Hogatar. It's really cool, right? It's kind of gives me like Togepi and Tyranitar vibes. That'd be the cutest, most deadly Pokemon there is. So they run off. They want to go and see what's happening. And yeah, remember how I said he's really good with skipping rocks and whatnot? Liko is trying to hide. They're running. She's trying to hide. He grabs one of his rocks and he throws it and he just starts bouncing off trees. The reason he does this is it's making the noise. Now, these Pokemon that are pursuing Liko and Sprigatitto, they can't see him anymore, but they can still hear. So he does it. They bail. They start chasing the sound of that rock, and all of a sudden a hand pops down from out of a tree, and Roy's like, let me help you up. Get up here now. And Liko is like, hey, Fuecoco, how are you, man? So she gets up and they are momentarily safe. That's the key point, momentarily safe. Because after the introductions are happening, so Liko and Roy, they properly introduce themselves. There was also one thing that happened, and I kind of skipped past. I did skip past. I didn't even mention it. As Liko was running away and Roy was running in to try to save it, Liko's pendant started to glow. That's interesting. Whether it was because she was in danger and maybe it was getting ready to activate, similar to how it did, so she didn't get like killed by the Psycho Cut. Or maybe it's reacting to Roy. Maybe it's reacting to Roy's Pokeball, the ancient Pokeball. Maybe. Okay. Why? Real quick. Roy shows Liko his ancient Pokeball. And he's like, look, my grandpa found this a really, really long time ago and it doesn't open. We don't think there's a Pokemon in here. But what if this Pokeball is only meant to be able to capture that Terrapagos looking not Terrapagos, but the Terrapagos looking Pokemon, the one that protected Sprigatitto and Liko? That could be. I feel like that Pokeball though would be a lot more colorful. I don't know. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting, actually. So my theory on this is either he's going to accidentally catch Fuecoco with this ancient Pokeball. So say there's nothing in it, even though it doesn't open. I don't know. Maybe there needs to be some sort of factor that hasn't happened yet. So maybe he catches Fuecoco in this Pokeball. I don't think so. What I think will happen, or what I hope will happen, he'll catch Fuecoco in a regular old Pokeball. That's it. I reckon we get towards the end of the series, or the end of the season rather, and you know, they're traveling together. We know Roy's the other main character, even though you couldn't tell it yet. And I reckon what's going to happen is Roy's going to be in trouble, or he and Liko are going to be in trouble. Their Pokemon are beaten down. They've been destroyed by the explorers. Maybe it's it'll be a legendary Pokemon tie-in, so maybe they've somehow put Koraidon and Miraidon under their control, and they've just been beat down. And then all of a sudden, the ancient Pokeball activates and opens. Because it's not in small mode. You know how Pokeballs can be small and then when activated, they'll go big? This is just always in big mode. So, maybe it has an ancient Pokemon in there. Doesn't need to be a legendary, just an ancient, powerful Pokemon that's been left dormant in this Pokeball for decades. And at like the last minute, the 11th hour, Roy brings it out. And, well, it's Roy's Pokemon, right? And he gets a really powerful newer member of his team. So that's what I'm kind of hoping. I think it can go better than that, but that's the general gist of what I think will happen and what I hope will happen. Now, Roy states, essentially, he's the typical shonen protagonist. He wants to be like the ancient hero that his grandpa had told him about. These ancient heroes, they would battle legendary Pokemon. They'd seek out treasure. They'd befriend and capture Pokemon all over the world. He's our basic bitch Pokemon master. I love it. I'm not complaining. I love it. I just love it. Of course I am. Shonen anime and manga is catered to people like me. And probably like you. So I like it. Now, as he's explaining this, the rampaging Pokemon actually catch back up to them. And it's over pretty quickly, unfortunately. They are just enveloped in the most giant cocoon of string shot that I've ever seen. And they are dragged back. Like, they are dragged, kicking and screaming. This is really dark now that I'm saying it out loud, but they were dragged, kicking and screaming, to a secluded spot in the forest. Thankfully, Freed, Charizard, and the captain arrive. Thankfully, they arrive, and Charizard wants to burn them down. Like, he wants to just put the fire blast on all of them, but Freed's like, hold up, homie. Your fire is going to make things worse. And this is kind of why I think he's a professor. Or I guess supporting my thoughts on him being a professor. First of all, he decides to just walk in by himself. And they're throwing string shots everywhere. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all, man. He does not care. He's jumping up and down. He's really just... He's dodging everything. And it looks really cool. But the way he's doing it is by the end, all of the Pokemon, they've entrapped themselves. So they're all now stuck in their own string shot, including the Cypher. What he does is he gets some little berries and feeds the Pokemon, which calms them all down. So that seems like a very professor move, right? He knows what berries are going to have certain effects. And I get a lot of people in the Pokemon world do. But again, we're getting a hint that he's a Pokemon professor. So, yeah. Right? He calms them down. As they're about to head back, so Freed, he's just like, all right, Liko, we got to get back to the Brave Asagi. Both Liko and Roy are like, wait, hold up. Give us a minute. They go and they forage a whole new stash of berries for these Pokemon. It's bigger. It's like 10 times bigger than it was before. And they seem to have repaired relations. So they're all happy with each other now. And all these other bug type and grass type Pokemon and ground type for Diglett, they're not going to go hungry. They've now got food, and that's great. And then Roy gets left behind. So I'm not sure how he's going to become a part of the group, but Roy's left behind. Charizard picks up Liko and Sprigatitto. He's got Freed and Captain on his back, and they are heading back to the Brave Asagi, but they just leave Roy in the middle of the forest. It was pretty messed up. Yeah. We skip to later that night. Everyone's asleep, and Fuecoco is singing on like the deck of the Brave Asagi. The deck is the word I'll use. He's on the side of the ship, just singing his lungs out again, and he wakes up Liko and Sprigatitto. They go back to sleep pretty instantly. However, for a split second, we transition to a shot under the Brave Asagi where we see which I still strongly believe is this tracking chip or the locator chip or the locator whatever that Zer from the explorers placed on the ship in the last episode. So they're definitely, I guarantee it's a tracker. I promise you it's going to be. If it's not a tracker, they will need to have such a crazy story and explanation as to why it's something else, because the tracker just makes the most sense. We cut to Amethio. Amethio is now talking to kind of like an emo butler. I think it's his butler. It's his servant, his lackey. I think it's his butler. And he's talking about Liko. He's talking about the pendant. And then we get a name drop of what seems to be the explorer's big boss. And the name is, it's Gibeon. Like Gibeon with a B, not a D. So it looks like Master Gibeon is the leader of the explorers. I didn't expect to find out who that was so soon, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's just like the leader, or the leader of Amethio's group. But it did give me the impression that he's like the big bad guy, because Amethio's like, yes, this is all part of Gibeon's plan. So that makes me think that. He's like, look, don't tell Gibeon what we found out so far. I've got a move that I want to make, and hopefully we're going to get that before we have to report anything in. So maybe we're going to see some rebelling later. Maybe Amethio and his group, or Amethio and his group, are going to turn on Gibeon. We'll just have to wait and see. For those that miss Team Rocket's submarine, there is a submarine back, because Amethio, Zir, and Konya, they are in a submarine underwater. It's completely submerged, so we don't know where they are. But I'm pretty darn sure there is something on that ship that's going to track the Brave Asagi. At the very end, we see them fire up the submarine, and they take off. They're obviously near an island, because there's a lot of rocks they would dock. So maybe they're on the same island that we're on at the moment, or maybe they're still back to where the place was in the last episode. We didn't get a name of that city. Pretty sure it wasn't Vermilion City, but Vermilion City would make the most amount of sense, because it's like the only port, or the major port, in Kanto. But that's only the games and the manga. We're not 100% sure. Guys, that was episode 4 of Pokemon Horizons, a washed ashore treasure. It was a washed ashore treasure, right? Yeah, a washed ashore treasure. It was great. Loved it. I hope you loved it too. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments. Like, subscribe, and we're going to cover every single episode. And I think as we start to get a little bit more information, I want to start making other videos about Pokemon Horizons as well. Maybe we do character breakdowns. We do some theory videos. I've never done a theory video. That'll be exciting. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Have a great day.